Hi, it's Roger.
Hello, Roger. How are you today?
Good. Yourself?
Very good. Isn't it? We're enjoying the nice weather in California while somewhere it's snowing and raining.
Well, that's why we all live here, isn't it?
Right. Where did you go? I heard you had a trip. Probably didn't have such nice weather.
Well, I was in Hawaii, so the
Oh,
weather
then you did have a nice weather.
it rained for 4 days, and the locals said it's the coldest they've seen it all year. So, but it was still better than a lot of places for sure.
All right. So did you have the chance to swim at least?
No, I got a lot of work done now.
Okay. And now with computers, you can work anywhere you can think of.
24/7, absolutely. There's no such thing as a vacation anymore.
Yes. Now, I know that we have meetups coming up next week, and you, one of the presenters with Rob Lau. Would you please tell us about that meetup coming up?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The meetup, you're right, it's Rob Lau's meetup, which is Idea to IPO. And on Thursday evening, this Thursday the 24th, at Hacker Dojo, I'm going to be presenting Startup Basics, How to Split the Pie, Raise Money, and Reward Contributors. And this is an idea that, and I've presented many times to many meetups, including Idea to IPO, on legal issues for startups. But I've had a thought for quite a long time about expanding the nature of the talk and leveraging the 20-some years that I've been here in Silicon Valley to discuss some of the more practical, basic business issues that face startup companies. And that is what the program will be about.
All right. So Hacker Dojo in Mountain View.
Correct.
All right. I know that being an attorney and working with startups, is it any changes in the law, recent law, we should be aware of?
Well, yeah, there have been. The crowdfunding space is certainly moving along. The law doesn't typically change very quickly, but business practices certainly do. And we have had some changes in the securities laws to provide for new and different kinds of offerings. And the business models and technology have been rapidly adapting to the changes in the securities rules. So the biggest thing, probably the biggest thing to happen in startup company land is just the way that startup companies can go about raising money. Since the last time we talked, we've gotten new regulations from the Securities and Exchange Commission that in some circumstances will allow public advertising and solicitation for accredited-only investments. And that's pretty big news because for most of the last 80 years, that has not been legal or allowed for private placements. And now it is if done properly.
What do you think? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, I was just going to ask, what do you think would be the effects of these new laws?
Well, the effect is going. The intended effect was to democratize the process of fundraising. I mean, you've heard about crowdfunding in the non-equity space, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, etc. And the idea is that you let the wisdom of the crowd control, and you let people go in public forums, and they can discuss and talk about something, and eventually the truth will come out. Like I say, it's democratizing the process. We didn't quite get there with the legislation, the crowdfunding legislation. That was certainly the intent when it was introduced and passed the House of Representatives. But by the time the Senate got done with it, what we ended up with was just a new type of investor protection. But nevertheless, we got one thing out of it that is making a big difference, and that's this idea of 506C offerings where companies can advertise and publicly solicit for accredited-only investments. What that's going to do, to answer your question, is it's going to allow startup companies, to reach a very wide audience of investors. It's going to free up probably billions of dollars of angel investment capital that just didn't have access to good startup companies, especially here in Silicon Valley before. And it has already given birth to lots and lots of websites and portals and platforms that allow for a couple of different things. One is just advertising, just plain out advertising companies. And secondly, creation of private investment clubs, which can be quite large, by the way, to fund startup companies that the investors might never meet. They might only know them through the internet, and that's kind of been the biggest change. And there's more of that to come. There'll just be more of that to come.
What type of new advertising are they now allowed to do? Are they allowed to run TV ads, or who are they allowed to advertise to now that they weren't allowed to before?
So if a company is going to take money from accredited investors only, and it goes to the trouble of verifying that rather than just taking their word for it, and if it files additional reports with the Securities and Exchange Commission and a few other requirements, then yeah, they can advertise however they want. They could theoretically go through the phone book and start calling numbers. They could skywrite. They could take out newspaper ads. They could. None of that has happened that I know of. Although I have seen Twitters, I've seen people tweet about it. I've seen LinkedIn ads. I've seen social media used quite a bit. But mostly, it's going to be people putting things on websites and hoping they can attract some traffic.
Great. Now, I know that you have been working with a lot of startups here in California, and also you're working in other states. Why is that important to have licensing for the attorney in every state?
Well, I actually work these days only in California. I've practiced in 6 states in my career. I started in the Midwest, at the corner of 3 states, so I had to get licensed in all 3 of them. And then I moved to the East Coast, so I got licensed in New York, and I came out here and got licensed in California, and I do some stuff in Nevada, so I'm licensed there. But the way the legal regulation works in the United States is that states regulate the practice of law by its resident attorneys. So everybody who's sitting in California practicing law in California has to be licensed in California. That's why it's important.
Now, being in California, where about 2/3 of venture capital here in Silicon Valley, is it easy for startups to get funded, as what you've seen from your overview of Silicon Valley?
2/3 might be a little high. I'd say 1/4 to 1/3 of all the U.S. venture capital, but that's still a lot. Is it easy? No, it's not easy at all. It never is. And people come here from all over the world thinking that it is, but it's not. I see, maybe 1 in 100 is going to do that. It's a very high risk game. It's not as risky as other things, but it's still statistically unlikely that a company is going to get funded. And that's pretty much the basis of our presentation on Thursday, because I've been doing this for 30 years now, and I have a sense as to what it takes for a company to make it. Let me tell you a story. I saw this on the Discovery Channel the other night. It's a story about, how turtles are born? Have you ever seen this, Olga?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
I've heard about that. They're just kind of eggs are laid on the beach, and they try to crawl towards the ocean once they're hatched.
That's right. They're laid on the beach and hopefully under the sand sometimes, and hopefully they can avoid being eaten by a snake or a lizard or an alligator. And I mean, if they manage to make it through that and they manage to hatch, the turtle gets out of the shell, and it's got a choice. It can either go the wrong way and end up in a jungle where who knows what'll get it, or it can make it, the 30 yards to the ocean. And when these turtles hatch, they just go shooting towards the ocean. They don't hesitate, they don't stop, they don't ponder, they don't form committees to try to figure out which way to go. They just go right for the ocean, because there are birds waiting for them to hatch that come down on them like dive bombers. And some of them make it to the water's edge, and some of them don't. The ones that make it, once they're there, they can't stop there either, because now they got to deal with the fish that want to eat them. So the turtle starts out life realizing that it's a pretty tough life. Startup companies are a lot like that. And some of them are going to hatch, and they're going to move quickly and decisively and make all the right moves. And they have a very good chance of making it, or a lot better chance, I should say, of the startups that really do this uninformed. And and don't learn the lessons of those that went before them. And the point of the story is just to say that, there is a clear path. There is a clear path to funding and success. It doesn't mean that every company is going to make it, but it does mean that there are a few basic things that companies ought to know if they're going to go down this path.
And what advice would you give for these companies to, try to get funding and succeed in the future?
Well, that's an hour discussion.
Any condensed points?
I'd say it comes down to it's really important. Team is really important. Just having the right team. I mean, I think the number one thing in just looking at companies that have failed and those that have succeeded, and I could tell you stories about company. I could tell you stories about two companies coming into my office with the exact same idea. One company makes it, the other one doesn't, and most of the time it comes down to team. Do you have the right team? And if you don't, are you in a position where you can put the right people in place? If you ever read the book Good to Great, the concept is you figure out what seats on the bus need to be filled, and then you fill them with the right people. And if you don't have the right person in the seats, you find the right person. That's number one. That's where most companies screw up if they don't do it right, and that's where the biggest thing that causes them to succeed if they do it right. So I would just leave you with that as one tip: just have the right team.
And I know that you also wrote a book. Would you please tell us about it?
Yeah,
Is it
funny
still
you should mention it.
available?
I'm working on the rewrite and the second edition. The book is Dead on Arrival: How to Avoid the Legal Mistakes That Could Kill Your Startup. And it, again, draws on my experience as a lawyer for the past 30 years and focuses on all the things that I've seen companies do wrong and the things that were totally avoidable and the things that they should have done right. And it's a book not just for lawyers. It's a book for startups. It's a book for entrepreneurs. It's a book that inform entrepreneurs on what they need to know and what they need to ask their lawyers and what they need to tell their lawyers to do and to think about. So Dead on Arrival: How to Avoid the Legal Mistakes That Could Kill Your Startup.
And I know you also presented, if you just search Olga Shaw and Roger Royce, you would be able to find that interview where he was talking about crowdfunding change flows and also about his books and some of the mistakes you should avoid right from the start.
Right. Olga, I've got one other thing I want to talk to you about.
Yes.
I know that I can't monopolize your show. You've got some very important people waiting, but one thing I do want to tell you about that I'm very excited about is I'm an organizer of a conference coming up in May, on May 12th, and I definitely want to come down to the studios and talk about it, on agriculture technology companies, the new field of ag tech. It's something I've been involved with for a couple of years now. We've finally gotten around to putting together a conference on ag tech. That's tech companies around the agriculture industry. And we haven't really even promoted this very much. I'm almost afraid to, because word has gotten out and the response has been really surprising. We've got companies from all over the world that have contacted me that are coming out here from as far away as New Zealand and Ireland to come to our conference and pitch to our panel of angels and VCs. It's going to be a great conference on May 12th.
And where it will be?
Good question. It's in Palo Alto at the Oshman JCC, May 12th from 9 to 4. We're not hiding, even though we're not promoting very heavily. If you Google Silicon Valley Ag Tech, it'll pop up.
And it's Jewish Community Center in Palo Alto.
Right.
Great. Well, yes, contact with me and we will find the time. As now our show becoming so popular, it's time fill up very quickly, but would like to work on this because we all want to have good food on the table.
Yes, definitely.
And because what we eat, what will come out of us by talking, behaving, and so forth. I'm not going into great details here, but we want to have good food on the table.
Definitely.
Right.
So hopefully you will help us with that, and so many other companies who will be working with you on that. Yes. And therefore, thank you, and I wish you a happy Easter, which is tomorrow. You probably will be working, and nevertheless, we wish you happy Easter, and I'm going to talk a little bit after our commercial break what is it, Easter, and what is it, resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. I will be educating myself so I won't forget, and meanwhile we'll let other people to know about that too. Thank you, Roger, and I will talk to you later. Happy Easter, and thank you for calling.
Bye now.
Bye. And once again, I can just announce you before the commercial break. You're welcome to call us at 408-912-5265, 408-912-5265. And of course, you can always find us at olgashow.org, where we can link you to u923fm.com, which is a radio station. We are not only live radio station, we're also available on the internet. And we making videos which will be available for your review. Olga Show supports technology, culture, and people from you to you.
Thank you for listening to U9.